Okay, this is solving equations with variables on each side, part 2. So we looked at part 1 and we remembered that you need to simplify on both sides of the equal sign the best you can. Use addition of the opposite. So I showed you those things. Here we're looking at number 4, and I rewrote it over here so I'd have more room. So when you get something like this, there's multiple ways you can solve it, but if the only thing you have on this side is a fraction, and the only thing you have on this side is a fraction, what I recommend doing is cross multiplying. So this times this is equal to this times this. When you do that, you have to remember that these need to be in parentheses. This doesn't have to be because it's only one term. So when I write it, 2 times 6 plus 3x equals 4 times 4x minus 7. So make sure you put it in parentheses and use distributive property. And also to remember, here I'm going to write this as 4x plus a negative 7. So that's using addition of the opposite. So now I'm going to use distributive property and take what's outside the parentheses and multiply it by everything that's inside. So 2 times 6 is 12. 2 times 3x is 6x. 4 times 4x is 16x. And 4 times a negative 7 is negative 28. So now you can solve it just like the ones you've done before. Keep your equal sign lined up. Do the same thing on both sides of the equation. So here, I'm going to subtract 12 on both sides. So I have 6x is equal to 16x plus negative 40. Then I'm going to subtract 16x on both sides. Remember, you have to combine like terms only. So I'm only subtracting the 12 from the 28 because these are like terms. This has an x. These both have an x, so they're like terms. Negative 10x equal to negative 40. And divide by negative 10 because that's 1. So x is equal to 4. And the last one. This says find the value of x so that the rectangles have the same area. And this gets confusing to some people, but you really should be able to do this because you know how to find the area of a rectangle. It's length times width. If they have the same area, the same would be an equal sign. So to find the area of this one, I do 12 multiplied by x. And if they're the same, that means it has to equal 16 multiplied by x plus negative 2. Notice how I used addition of the opposite. So make sure you look at that. If they have the same area, that means they equal each other. So there's my equal sign. Area is length times width. 12 multiplied by x. 16 multiplied by x minus 2. And then you can solve from there. Use addition of the opposite. Distributive property over here. 16x plus a negative 32. The only thing I can do here is subtract 16x on both sides. So negative 4x is equal to negative 32. Divide both sides by negative 4. So x is 8.